What is up, everyone? This is Jason Rigby, ABQ Business Podcast. Today, I'm super pumped. We have something I know that you're going to like, and I don't want to say that just generically. This is something that we all deal with on a daily basis as leaders, and that's accountability. And we're going to take it from a whole different approach. You're going to see accountability like you've never seen before, and it's going to cause you to think. And in this thought process, I hope that it makes you become more self-aware and you can become a better leader, because that's what this podcast is all about. Ultimately, it's us working and doing what we need to do through discipline day in and day out so that we can serve others and not just be the example of what a good human should be, but more than that, changing people's lives. That's what you do as a leader. Did you know that? You change people's lives. You also provide them a job so that they can have support for their family. And it's more than that. You give them a mission and a purpose. And the way that they act when they get home with their family is directly dependent on you as a leader. If they hate their job and they come home and they're shitty to their wife or their kids or their partner, think about that. You have a direct reflection on that. Just by saying hi and how are you doing or having a coaching session with one of your employees can change dramatically the way that they are in their personal life. So accountability. And I always like to give credit where credit's due. This is with Leif Babin. He is a former Navy SEAL officer, co-author of the New York Times bestsellers Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. He's also the co-author of the Dichotomy of Leadership. He is president, co-founder of Echelon Front, and he put an email out. And the title of the email, the subject line of the email is, "It's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate." Let me say that again. It's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. And he gets into how leaders, we demand more accountability for our people. And I have said this statement, and we all have, and we know we have. We make this statement all the time, especially when we're like around a board meeting or we're having a team meeting with other leaders in the organization. And we always say this: we need to start holding people accountable. How many times have you said that? Be honest. I need to start holding my people accountable. And what that comment is accompanied by complaints. And usually it's a complaint of a team or an individual who's falling short, underperforming, or not being at that perceived standard. And Leif Babin talks about accountability as a tool to get people to comply. And it carries with it an idea that there's going to be consequences for underperformance. There's going to be punishment. There's going to be counseling. There's going to be loss of pay or privileges. Maybe some people are going to get fired. And in the military, he talks about this, and I remember this is when I was in the Marine Corps, is there might be a stern talking behind the mill van, and that's a shipping container, and we always had shipping containers near us. And you go in the back behind that, and sometimes it got physical. They'd straighten you out. I mean, I'm not encouraging that in the least bit. This was in the Marine Corps, different time, different place. You will instantly be fired for that. And I don't condone that in any form of leadership. But he says accountability is a tool, but it should only be used as a last resort. Ooh, it's a tool, and it should only be used as last resort. So if I can't use that to threaten people, to show that they're underperforming, hold people accountable, then what should I do? Well, he says, first you need to understand accountability as a crutch. Because leaders use accountability as a crutch to put the blame for substandard performance on others. It's easy. Put the blame on somebody else. Don't take responsibility for the issue or the problem. I don't need to do this as a leader because my team is the one that aren't performing. He says, rather than to threaten to hold people accountable, it is far better to create a culture where the team understands why high standards of performance must be maintained and what is at stake if the standards slip. That way, a team will hold themselves accountable. Because we all know when people are threatened by punishment, the minute you leave or go somewhere, you go to a conference, you go to an event, you take 2 weeks off, a week off, well, what happens? If it's always fear-based, punishment-based, and you're that type of leader, well, when the cat's away, the mice will play. That's why you have to understand accountability is that tool that's only used as a last resort. And it is you as a leader letting the team itself hold each other accountable, creating 100% responsibility among that team. And it's your job as a leader to create that. Well, you're like, Jason, how the hell do I create this? Let me start with this, and I don't want you to tune me out. We've all heard of Simon Sinek, great book, awesome New York Times bestseller about the why. And I want to get to that right now, because if people understand why it's important and how it will benefit them first, remember, it's people are all about, you're the leader, you got to make it about them first, then the team, then the company. You share with them how it's going to benefit them, the team, and the company. That's the why. And then, if you have to get the point across, go into the negative consequences to the team, to the mission, and to what can happen to the organization. But I don't even like going negative unless I absolutely have to kind of shake somebody up, because the minute you go negative, then it triggers fear again. And that's not what I would do. I want to inspire people, not trigger the fear part of them. I don't want them, me holding them over a cliff where they're threatened to. I want to walk up to the cliff with them and show them the vastness of abundance and what can be. So they need to understand why it's important. A lot of people don't think they're that important. They have a meaningless job, clock in, clock out. They're a nobody. And if you haven't seen that movie, you need to see it. It's on HBO Max. It's called Nobody. And you see that it's this guy just clocks in, clocks out, makes the coffee, is not very, just kind of is accountant, does the same thing over and over again. It's a great movie. It's an action movie. It's called Nobody. And that's what I'm picturing when I see this. So make sure they understand the why. And accountability, he talks about this, and I think this is awesome. Instead of focusing on others in your team, focus on yourself. Here we go. In Extreme Ownership, he wrote this: it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. A leader must hold the standards of performance high. If you tolerate substandard performance and there are no consequences, then that substandard performance becomes the new standard. If they see you as a leader being substandard, but yet you're trying to hold them accountable, we see this all the time. This is why we get so pissed off at politicians. At least I do. I don't care what side you're on. Both of them do this. They think they're above the law. They think they're above being accountable. They have substandard performance, and then they want us to be this certain way. And I don't care if you're in Europe or where you're at. It's always that way. The most important thing that you can do, and the hardest thing you can do, is to look at yourself. And you got to ask these questions. He talks about this. You got to ask these questions. And this is very, very important, guys. When you're doing this self-analysis, what do you tolerate in yourself that you shouldn't? That hits me so hard. It's like a punch in the face. What do you tolerate in yourself that you shouldn't? When you start to let things slip, that can become a slippery slope, and then your own substandard performance becomes the new standard. What have you tolerated? Chutes and ladders. What if you're trying to win the game and you slide down that chute? Where are you at right now? How do you hold yourself accountable? Well, it's yourself. Hold yourself accountable. Stop threatening to hold people accountable and hold yourself accountable. It's your responsibility. And I want to get into these things because I think they're important. It's your responsibility not just to explain the why, but explain standards of performance. Have you gotten clear on that? What each person's, this is why coaching is so important, guys, and that you should be taking the time to do this. If you're too busy to coach, you're doing something wrong. You're a manager, not a leader. And doing the same thing over and over and over again is insanity. It's expecting a different result. You're going to have a 20% increase in your sales when you're doing everything for your salespeople and they're not held accountable at all. That's your problem. You need to hold yourself accountable because the standards of performance that you're creating in yourself, a lot of times you're doing stupid shit. And I've talked about this before. Go through and write specifically, take the time like we do with calories and what we eat. Write down everything because you're surprised how many calories you take in a day if you write down everything. You're like, oh, I only had like 2,000 calories today. And then you find out you had 5,000. What are the standards of performance? Do they know this? Does each team member know from you the standards of performance, what you expect from them? Do they know the process? Have they created their own kind of semi-process or learned it from, some 30-year-old Bill that's been there forever that doesn't really do shit? Like, where did they get the process from? Did it come from you? Safety procedures. Or whatever it is that people are working on, is it ultra clear? What is important to you as a leader for them to do? What is the vision you have for them? If they were operating at 100% and at a 10, from 1 to 10 at a 10 in their job, what would that look like? Have you explained that to them? Say, Jim, if you were operating at a 10 in this position, here's what it would look like. Susan, you're doing a phenomenal job. I want you to know that. I think there's a few things that we can tweak. I don't want you to focus on this as being like a negative thing. I just want to let you know if I could be accountable and you could hold me accountable to make sure that every 2 weeks or every month we have a meeting. I'm going to put it in my calendar right now, but I also want to put it in your calendar to email me to remind me also, and we'll have that. See, that's team, guys. That's holding each other accountable. Provide support, train, coach, and give guidance where it's needed. You've got to create a culture where people hold themselves accountable. Imagine your team holding each other accountable. Imagine your team operating at a 10. Imagine what that would do for you. How would you feel? Because if you have resentment in your heart, I'm going to get a little personal right now. If you have resentment in your heart for your team, you don't love your team. It's us versus them. You feel like they're not doing the value that you've given them. I talk to business owners all the time about this, and they don't love their employees because they're just passive aggressive with them all the time and do a fake smile because they feel like it's us, it's me versus my employees. They're trying to get as much as they can from me, and I'm trying to get as much as I can from them. And it's just battle back and forth. It doesn't need to be that way, guys. Do you truly love your employees? Do you care for them? Talked to a manager the other day that one of his team members' wife died. He went to the hospital. He brought food to the house. That's a true manager, guys. That's a leader. That's what we should do. It should be a big deal, people's birthdays. Support them. Be about them. Send flowers. Have flowers. Get it on the schedule. Ask a florist or go online. They have things online where you can send flowers and you can do it ahead of time where you can just automatically send it every and it's expense account where you can automatically get donuts, get burritos, get whatever occasionally. Take people individually out to eat and coach them one-on-one. Find out about their personal lives, what's going on. Love your people. Don't always try to hold yourself accountable and love your people. And I guarantee you, it will change not only you, but your leadership, your team, and the culture where you know specifically that you need to change. That is what needs to happen. And ask yourself, what are you tolerating in yourself that you shouldn't? Write that down. Not what you're tolerating with others, with yourself. Fix that. Hold yourself accountable. And then turn around, guys. This is very, very simple. Make it clear the why, the standards of performance. Make it clear the process. Make it clear the procedures. Make it clear how important each person is. Do the coaching, put in the work. Do it for 2 weeks. I guarantee you guys, if you do this for 2 weeks, it'll dramatically change. Not just you, but those that you serve around you.
On the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thanks to our sponsor, RigbyDigital.com. Make sure to subscribe and share. And go to abqpodcast.com. Get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner.